Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live, talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynn@pghcitypaper.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
Hey, welcome to Friday edition, April 19th, Good Friday, in fact. Which is weird because it was a bad day in the Christian calendar, but why is it called Good Friday? I'm just asking. It just occurred to me. You would think if something was Good Friday, you might say Happy Good Friday, but of course you don't. Everybody learns that at some point. I don't know why it's called Good Friday. Unless, well, never mind. It's not what you want to talk about. One of the takeaways from yesterday with the release of the redacted Mueller Report, although not nearly as redacted as some had felt sure would be the case. One immediate takeaway that I had from tuning into, the CNNs and MSNBCs and Fox News types in mid-afternoon is, man, there are a lot of extraordinarily fast readers. They're interviewing Congress people who are saying, well, yes, I've read the report. I'm thinking, you read 400 pages in 434 pages in what? Let's see now. It's 2.5 hours? Jeez. And then, of course, there are the reporters who are actually, having to not really speed read it. Because it's in legalese. And legalese is not, if you're not a lawyer, is not quickly digestible. So my first takeaway is, wow, seriously, got some fast readers out there. I myself have not read much of the actual report. I've relied on the grand reporters at some of the better newspapers to do that for me and then to alert me to what parts are particularly amazing. I would normally not, after I think I trashed the New York Times the other day, but I would suggest that if you want a full account, the New York Times today, besides their normal reporting, which is in the newspaper, they put together a 22-page special report of the Mueller Report, and inside they have printed all of those executive summaries that Mueller's team put together, and I think thought that the Attorney General might make use of, but he did not. So I really do recommend this as just a historical document. You might want to pick one up today. I'm all for, you hold it in your hand. And there are some other graphs and timelines that I think would be harder to parse on a computer. I do recommend spending $3 for the New York Times today because there's just a ton of stuff. If you don't want to read the whole 400 plus pages, it's a from what I can tell, and let me be clear, I haven't even read their whole 22-page special section. But if you're interested and want to dig a little deeper on your own, I think this gives you an awful good way to do it without slogging through the entire report. Somebody pointed out, who was that? I know it was David Brooks. He pointed out that for the last for the entirety of this administration. We have been treated to tirades about fake news and leaks and treason and all of this. And David Brooks pointed out, and I think he's absolutely right, that the fact that there were leaks of some of what is in the report, the fact that we knew already some of what Mueller had, by virtue of, pretty good reporting going on by the D.C. press corps. And Trump would be enraged about these leaks, right? Brooks points out that, let's say we were not privy to any of the information that we have been privy to as a result of reporting. And in fact, the Mueller report coming out yesterday would be the first time that almost all of these pieces of information were shown to us. In other words, rather than a drib here, a drib there, 2 weeks later, another thing there, all of which, any of which, in any other administration would be the biggest story of that presidency. We got inured. Oh, they lied about that. Oh, they what with the Russians then? Who? What? All of that. If none of that had happened, if we did not know, and we just found out the entirety with the Mueller report, we would be blown away. And there would be no doubt that the calls for impeachment would be immediate. But the problem is we became inured to much of what is in here. And so, as with so much in this administration, the facts, the real facts, really don't have the impact that they would have had 2 years ago. And it shows how, when you live in a cesspool long enough, you get used to the stink. So I think that might be the biggest thing of all the damage. The sullying in every way of the office of the presidency. And I don't know, does one ever get that back? By the way, it was a great day for Vladimir Putin, because that report, again, if you read it, imagine you're Vladimir Putin reading it. It would be tantamount to Osama bin Laden looking at the towers come down. Never in his wildest dreams did he think something could be that successful. Even more successful. I mean, the only thing they didn't get was taking out the Capitol. Thanks to some brave Americans flying over Pennsylvania. But, all right, let me just, I'll I'll give you some of my, again, takeaways from this. I think the biggest issue in my head now is one, God dang it. I don't know. It's spring. Yeah. Anyway, the biggest, why do I keep saying biggest? I'm starting to sound like Trump. Every other word is biggest. It's the biggest. I really, well, I can't even remember what I was saying. Let me wade into this. Oh, I remember what I was saying. The biggest decision now is, do you impeach? And I was steadfastly in Nancy Pelosi's lap on this one, that because there would not be a conviction by virtue of the shameless Republicans in the Senate, that, and as Adam Schiff, I think, said yesterday, a failed impeachment would not be good for the country, and I'm sure he's also thinking, and for the Democrats. But I'm now not so sure, and puts me in the uncomfortable position of not being decided on it, that in some ways what Mueller laid out, and it became clear, as opposed to what the effing Attorney General tried to spin yesterday. If you look at what Mueller says, his report is really, and somebody on Twitter said this, it is an impeachment referral. Mueller does not find collusion or clear evidence. He doesn't let Trump off. But, well, I'll give you a quote from the Mueller report. If we had confidence after a thorough investigation of the facts that the president clearly did not commit obstruction of justice, we would so state. In other words, if looking at this mess, this disgusting mess in front of us, we would clearly state that the president is clean. But we're looking at the facts, and we can't state that. If that's an exoneration, I would like somebody to please explain to me what the term means. Based on the facts, wrote Mueller, and the applicable legal standards, or applicable, if that's what floats your boat, based on the facts and the legal standards, we are unable to reach that judgment. That judgment meaning that the president clearly did not commit obstruction. And then he goes on to say he's hamstrung by the Department of Justice saying that you can't indict a sitting president. So even though he might think that's what he'd want to do, there's this, not law, but this rule that has not been scrutinized, as far as I know, totally by the Supreme Court. Anyway, he clearly says to Congress in the report the conclusion that Congress may apply the obstruction laws to the president's corrupt exercise of the powers of office. He's calling the president corrupt. He is pointing out that Congress Congress is able to indict. He can't, but they can. And he says this accords with our constitutional system of checks and balances and the principle that no person is above the law. Bill Barr will go down in history as someone who truly damaged the integrity of the office of Attorney General and the Justice Department. Because I just shared with you Mueller's actual words. And as I said, that is as clear an indication that he is saying to Congress, checks and balances, the Constitution gives you the indictment power here. Clearly, you. We have a corrupt president. It's in your court, pun intended. So the reason now I am wrestling with whether we impeach or not, knowing full well that there will not be a conviction because of the shamelessness of the Republicans. An impeachment would still indicate that there are co-equal branches of government, that the Constitution gives them certain powers. And that in a case where it is laid out so much disgusting conduct by a president, that for a Congress to look the other way and not indict simply because they know, by virtue of the shamelessness of the opposition, that they will not succeed in conviction, does not let them off the hook for upholding, first of all, the power of the Congress, and secondly, the rule of law. Or as Mueller says, this is the way that the Constitution said it's supposed to work. Checks, balances, and the principle that no person, even the president, is above the law. It seems in that regard that the House has a duty to indict. Democrats will say, but politically, that's not good. Because we know how this plays out, and it doesn't result in a conviction. But I'll tell you how it plays out. It plays out with hearings. And rather than have a whole bunch of hearings by this committee, that committee, you would have the impeachment, where it would all be the sordidness, where you would be able to put out why this man is unfit for the office he holds. And that would sort of consolidate all the investigations in some respects. I don't know. I'm thinking off the top of my head, I could still be argued into, nah, it's not politically worth it. But somehow I think there's something bigger afoot. And I know everybody says, well, look what happened to the Republicans. They did it to Clinton. And man, politically, that was a really bad move. He not only got reelected, but he got overwhelmingly reelected. And a whole bunch of Republicans lost their jobs. But is that apples and oranges? Clinton was a popular president. This one is not. Clinton's whole thing was, did he lie about having sex? A lot of, I think most men would argue, well, I can identify with that. And I think the people sort of saw it that way. But Trump and his crimes and misdemeanors are of a different sort. And I think most of the American people know that. And none of that would prevent the Democratic nominee or those seeking the nomination to be sidetracked. They should still be laying out what their presidency would do. And they could start by saying, we won't lie to you. We will try to restore the dignity of the office and our standing in the world. And here are the policies that we want to. I don't know. Again, as I said, I don't know. So this is something Democrats will have to figure out. Whether to be political or whether to be constitutional. Maxine Waters obviously thinks they should impeach and has thought that for a long, long time, but she says Congress's failure to impeach is complacency in the face of the erosion of our democracy and constitutional norms. And in that, she's correct, in that the failure to impeach simply feeds in to this sullying of what has been the norms of our governmental culture. I think that is something we would not want to add to. We'd want to stick the brakes on, force a reckoning of some sort, and even put the Republicans in the Senate in the position of having to defend this indefensible, despicable man. And so Waters does say, okay, we don't impeach. Then we're setting a precedent of sorts, aren't we? We actually have a president who, if any other president in the history of our country had behaved in even a little bit like him, they would have been impeached. There's no doubt about it. But because this president has led us down this rabbit hole where the norms don't apply and the bar has been lowered so much that we all yawn at this unbelievable report about what's happening in the White House. Supposedly the people's house. What's happening in there? That further erodes the structures of our democracy, and then we would be party to it as well. Just saying. It's possible. Think about it. I agree. Politically, it might be it's a risk. But are there bigger fish to fry here? Or is it conceivable we could do both things at once? Make the statement, the constitutional statement of impeaching this president as he should be impeached. And successfully challenging him for re-election. Those aren't two things we can do at once? Huh? I don't know. I sort of think we could. We have a caller. Go ahead, please.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. Hey, Lynn, did you happen to see, I think his name's John Flannery. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. The guy who wears the bow tie. He's
No.
a former prosecutor. Do you know who I mean?
No, but it's okay. John Dean?
Okay.
No, he's not a prosecutor.
No, John Flannery or something like that.
Okay,
That type
don't
of
know.
name.
So what did he say?
Don't know him. Okay. They asked him if he thought Mueller did anything wrong on this whole probe and that, and he said two things that he didn't. Of course, a lot of them are saying about interviewing Trump, but the second thing he said was that he should have went to the grand jury and recommended indictment. He said he should have done that and put that on the records. He could have done that. So that's a weird thing that he didn't do that.
Well, not weird. I'm sorry. Mueller just seems like such a straight arrow in so many ways.
Yeah.
We would all be.
But then again, he did do the Iran-Contra, if you remember.
Yeah, but
so
I'm just saying.
So I'm not 100% with Mueller to begin with. The whole gang doesn't impress me that much.
Yeah.
But I go along with it. But that's what in that bar, God, when they brought him, I said, my God, it's the same characters the last time.
Yeah.
So, but the only thing I see, the bottom line is, we're stuck with the bastard until election time, and unless we vote him out, the son of a bitch is going to get off scot-free.
Yeah.
Guaranteed. He's not going to see anything. So we better get him out of there. We're fucked. That's all. That's my opinion of it.
Because
there's nothing the Democrats can do. They don't have enough in the Senate. There's not enough. There's jerks over there. They're not going to do nothing. So it's pretty much like I thought it was going to be. We're just going to have to vote them out.
Okay.
God, hope we. And another thing I want to say to the Christians on the right, they said that God made sure that Trump was president because God has a mission for Trump. I got one for him right now. God is punishing the Christians for the molesting that went on at church. That's why, how about this one? That's why that cathedral caught on fire. How about that one? I could throw out shit like that too. They're being punished.
Yeah.
So I could do the same thing. But I almost died. And as somebody said the other day, who was a Trump supporter, where my wife works, and he said, if you're a Democrat, you're not a Christian. So that's the kind of talk they talk now.
Yeah. Okay.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, it is unbelievable.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a nice weekend.
You too. Happy Easter to you.
Okay. Bye.
And when Trump, he's tweeting like a lunatic today. And his tweets are deranged sounding. He's calling it bullshit. This is from the president. I'm not right just there. Has a president ever addressed us in that kind of lingo? And somebody pointed out on Good Friday, nonetheless, the good Christian president sent by God is lying through his teeth again and using profanity. We have another caller. Caller, go ahead, please.
Hello again, Lynn. John from Greensburg. Yesterday when I called in, I think I was still a bit stunned I shouldn't have been, from the Barr PR piece, the propaganda bit he did on Trump's behalf. Mainly because while we've always had politicians, even at the highest levels, who've lied and spun and broke the law and committed unethical acts. I'm not sure, and well, goodness gracious, we only have to go back to the George W. Bush administration to see that. But I don't know that we've had one like this where there's this brazen, contemptuous audacity where there is no attempt even to lie convincingly, even to lie so as to provide a veneer of credibility. They don't even attempt to make their lies sound in any way believable. For Barr to come out and state that even though the Mueller report details 10 attempts for the president to interfere in the investigation, starting with attempting to get James Comey, a Republican, let's remember, because every attorney general has been a Republican. Every FBI director has been a Republican, every single one. But regardless of that, to attempt to slow walk the Mike Flynn investigation. Mike Flynn, National Security Director, who is and was guilty, did lie to the FBI, did sell out his office to a foreign government. Let's remember that. So it started with that, and then firing Comey, and then stating live on television that he fired Comey because of the Flynn thing, as he called it.
Yeah.
Repeating that to a Russian government official. And then 9 other attempts, including attempts to get Mueller fired,
Right.
which were prevented by his aides.
Yeah,
But
I
the
mean,
attempt was made nonetheless.
Yeah, his aides saved him over and over and over again.
And Barr simply stating, well, he can't have criminal or corrupt motives. He was angry and frustrated.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, Barr yesterday was...
What a grotesque jape at our expense.
What is amazing, and I mean, I know, I was just seeing Little Tony tweeted, messaged me, does Barr not care what his legacy will be? I mean, what is with these people? He doesn't understand what side of history he's coming down on, what he's doing.
He doesn't give a he doesn't.
How doesn't anybody care about
I'm going to use a crude term. I don't like to be crude. In fact, I don't like to be crude. You know that about me. I'm going to be crude. Barr and the Republicans don't give a shit. They're shameless. They're brazenly shameless.
Yes.
All they care about, the writing is on the wall that they demographically, culturally, they are not going to be in the ascendancy in the coming decades.
No, of course.
That's done.
Yeah.
So they have to undermine democratic representative government.
Really something,
they have to gerrymander. They have to undermine minority votes. They have to count increasingly on the Electoral College. They have to try to disenfranchise urban voters. And by urban voters, I don't mean minority urban voters. I mean people in cities.
Right.
They have to pack the courts.
Well, they're doing all that. And they also do not turn down the help of the Russians in undermining our democracy. So, no, shameless doesn't even rise to the level of definition of the Republicans of today. And I wish I were young enough to live long enough to see the history books just take these. Mitch McConnell will go down in history as somebody who sullied his office. Barr sullied his office. Trump sullied his office. And make no mistake, that will be the judgment of history.
Last week we had a discussion, and you made a telling comment that sometimes, if there's metaphorical stench in the air, if we don't have the power to dispel it, we have to get used to it because we still have to breathe. I think about how the Mueller report details the utter pathological lying that Trump and his underlings have done to the public and the press.
Right.
And look at Sarah Huckabee Sanders. When she stood up on the stage, said that the FBI ranking file had lost confidence in James Comey. There had been countless conversations with agents that his agents, that the FBI.
She said it was a slip of. It never
a
happened.
Lie. A slip of the tongue.
No, she said it was a slip of the tongue. I'm sorry. When a tongue slips, it doesn't manufacture actions and stories that didn't occur.
So, anything she says at a press conference should be dismissed as a lie until proven otherwise. But reporters will still be required to go by their employers and listen to her, again, I'll use a crude term, bullshit, and write it down and ask questions and accept her answers and accept her sneering dismissals if she doesn't like their question.
Well, she has shown
so
herself
they'll have
to
to breathe
she's
the
doubling
rancid
down.
air.
She's doubling down on it. It was in the heat of the moment. And blah, blah, blah. Anyway, hey, I
Oh,
got to
heat
move.
of the moment lie.
Yeah, I got to move on. If I were a reporter, I would not attend any any presser that she was speaking at, because she's proven she's a liar. She should resign immediately, and until she did, I don't think I would be there. Anyway, thank you. Appreciate the call.
You're welcome.
Okay. Milton has sent me some reminders of how presidents used to sound 77 years ago. And I mean, those aren't the great words from from that presidential utterance, but we all know it, and we know where it goes. Or the more bellicose, but still, and this is another Republican president, speak softly and carry a big stick. That's Teddy Roosevelt. And then his cousin, Franklin, we have nothing to fear but fear itself. Boy, from the grave is he speaking to us now. And now we have somebody sitting in the Oval Office where these greater men sat. And his whole thing is make them afraid. Divide them and make them afraid. Where Lincoln said a house divided against itself cannot stand. Now we have a president who openly seeks to divide and conquer. Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country. Even Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. Barack Obama, with his call for the audacity of hope, God's greatest gift to us, he said, hope. A belief in things not seen. A belief that there are better days ahead. These were presidents, whether you agreed with their policies or not, who did respect the office they held and did not denigrate it or try to. I mean, you can argue that actions they took might have, but that was not their intent. And then we've got Donald Trump. I'm thinking of the Lincoln Memorial and that extraordinary memorial of him sitting there. And the words that are on it, his words that surround you and are so powerful and so meaningful. And imagine that same kind of edifice, only put Donald Trump in that chair. And the words, imagine the words on the wall. Fake news. I'm fucked. Bullshit. That's what we've got now. Again, the little drip, drip, drip of this presidency inuring us to the stench. There was a little teeny little fact in the Mueller report that's not getting any attention because it's nothing compared to so much of the other stuff. But I find it fascinating. Mueller recounts how the president asked the director of the National Security Agency, that at the time was Mike Rogers, Admiral Mike Rogers, if he could do anything to rebut these stories about Russia. He said, "Can't you do something?" And in the course of this conversation, the admiral's right-hand man, his deputy, a guy named Richard Leggett, who was present, considered what the president was asking. Can you do something about this Russian thing? This guy was so astonished that the president was saying that to the National Security Agency head that he started scribbling the president's words, exact notes, and after the meeting, he signed it, he showed it to the admiral, and the admiral said, "I'm signing that too." The two of them signed it, and they put it in a safe. The guy who wrote the note said in his 40 years in government service, he had never heard or had such an experience. That doesn't even get our attention. So the president said to the head of the National Security Agency, "Hey, can you do something about this Russia stuff?" It goes right past. So, yeah, of course he said that. It's Trump. Here are these two high-ranking Navy guys so blown away by the request that they actually put stuff in writing and put it in a safe. And it seems so picayunish to our now sullied ears. It's not. Doesn't even get talked about. All the talkers, they got 24/7. They got to keep talking. I haven't heard anybody say anything about this because Trump said the same thing to so many people. He screamed at his counsel, McGahn. He screamed at John Kelly. He screamed at... I'm so sorry. I just... Yeah. I just don't know. Our government is really being threatened. The very infrastructure of it is being dismantled. Our sense of propriety is getting destroyed, annihilated. And if you think that that doesn't matter, he points out what the Russian, I'm sitting here looking at something that, who is this? It's David Brooks again. About the Russians. The Russians were trying to, and we've heard it a million times before, sow disorder at the very foundations of our democratic society. Their goal was not really to make anybody believe anything in particular. They just wanted to make Americans upset. They wanted to make us doubt. They wanted to make us cynical. And by doing so, you undermine the infrastructure of the country. the goal, says Brooks, is not really to convert anybody to a cause. It is to create cynicism and disruption that will open up the space to grab what you need to grab. So they rig the system, and then they scream, the system is rigged. And so if you think the system is rigged, then there's no holds barred. It's rigged. I can do whatever I need to do. It allows anything. So, speaking of that, there's another thing in the Mueller report that didn't get a lot of attention that we did not know about before. And that is that the Russians, just a few months before the election, 2016 presidential election, they successfully penetrated the computer systems of at least one Florida county. And in doing so, I'm so sorry. And this is me medicated. I have medications coursing through my body. I've ingested them. I've sprayed them. I even get shots for them. And here I sit. It must be spring. So the Russians were successful in penetrating the computers of one of Florida's counties and inserting malware in the systems of a manufacturer of election equipment. So, when you go to vote, do you know if maybe the machine you're voting on has not been somehow compromised by the Russians? Just the fact that this information comes out now makes Vladimir Putin happy because it makes us fear that it's rigged, which does nothing but create trouble. Oh my. What can I do about that? Ansel says this is totally off subject, but he wants me to be aware that there are these conservative ads running on the Pittsburgh City paper website these days. I feel like they're trying to recruit your list. Well, fat chance. But if you click on just one of these ads, you'll be bombarded with conservative ads everywhere. And those are showing up on our, do we have any ability to keep those things off? I'll bring this to the attention of the guy who does our, but I got a feeling, see, this is the kind of, well, don't click on any of them, okay? You don't want to be subjected. He's showing me one with unflattering pictures of George Stephanopoulos and who is that? God, it's so unflattering. It's the CNN guy and Rachel Maddow. And it says here, is the media fair to Trump? Vote here. And I suppose if you click on that, you're toast. You're going to get more and more of that kind of stuff. Ansel, thank you for telling me that. And I'll see what we can do. If anything, I have no idea. And one other thing I just want to point out. So the president also was saved by his legal team, who successfully prevented him from having to be questioned by Mueller or his deputies, because the legal team knew full well that that'd be the end, because Trump is incapable of telling the truth. And so they were able to sit with Trump and answer the questions in written form. And shockingly, Trump's answers to Mueller's questions don't sound at all like Donald Trump. I mean, it's like, there's no way Trump said that. It is simply what his lawyers said he said. And almost every other word he says in response to every question is, I don't recall. I don't remember. I don't know that I have any independent recollection of that. I don't know. And so that's not, and the thing is, that's a lie. Saying I don't remember when you do is a lie. But how do you prove somebody doesn't remember? Also, from the Mueller report, the investigation has established that several individuals affiliated with Trump lied to this office and to Congress about their interactions with Russian individuals, and those lies materially, I can't say that word. Those lies impaired the investigation of Russian election interference. The report makes clear that Donald Trump was elected president with the help of a foreign power, and not a foreign power that wishes us well. There's no mistake about that. That's the finding. And while they were unable to prove that the Trump people were openly conspiring with the Russians, it doesn't say they weren't. They just can't prove it. Sharing polling data with them, taking meetings with them, saying, oh, you can give us stuff on Hillary? Wonderful. This is not the way a legitimate administration or presidential candidate acts. The White House that is pictured in the Mueller report is a swamp, a culture of deceit, dishonesty, backstabbing, lying, and terror. And I ask again, do we not have the responsibility to use the constitutional powers given to the House of Representatives by the Constitution to put in the historical record that this president committed crimes. And if we know we got a rigged jury in the Senate, do we not still have this responsibility to our country, to our history, to make it part of the historical record that the Congress of the United States, the House of Representatives, impeach this disgusting man? Oh, guys. I think that's it. I got one more quick little, it has nothing to do with any of this. And, oh, wait a minute. Henry, I'll get you in here. Lynn, God dang it. One of the more fascinating analyses that I've heard regarding the report is that Mueller apparently did not follow the money. I haven't read it yet, but I've heard more than a few people say there is very little in the report that referred to money, either received or given, and that there is nothing in the report that would indicate any money trails followed by Mueller. I think that's a mistake, writes Henry. Yeah, geez, I hadn't thought of that. Well, you know, as I started the show by talking about all these people that must be speed readers, I can't believe all the people that have read that whole report and have a ton of stuff to say about it. But over the weekend, people will be able, if they want, to digest every word. I have trouble with the legalese stuff, so I tend to want people to break it down for me, but I don't know. I think in this unredacted report, there is more than enough to impeach this disgusting person. Whether it's wise to do so can be argued. Just saying. Let's end on a happy note. Did you see the thing that one of the, remember those kids in Thailand that were stuck in that cave underwater for a long, long time and were rescued in this extraordinary, dangerous way, one rescuer dying, in fact? You remember that? Well, turns out one of the British rescuers of the boys needed to be rescued himself yesterday, I believe, from a cave in Tennessee. This guy was doing what he loves to do, going into very dangerous caves. He was with 4 other divers, and somehow he got separated. And he had to be rescued. And that's what goes around comes around. That's all I'm saying. And we'll end with Milton saying to Henry, who just told us about the money not being followed, and this is true. Milton says Henry is correct, but Henry, the Southern District of New York, they're the guys who are following the money. And that's why, as soon as we vote this thing out of office, he will be a private citizen again, and the Southern District of New York is going to take him and I think send him to jail. Okay, that's it for me. Just want to say happy Passover, because it starts tonight. And I also want to say happy Easter, because that's Sunday. And God help us. I got a feeling this weekend's going to be really... Oh, just be with family and enjoy. Seriously, that's what I'm going to do, I think. Okay? Have a good one. I'll see you Monday.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.